a lovely good afternoon, and you're watching Melo Live with me, Valerie. And you're watching us live on Melo Media Facebook page and YouTube channel at Melo Media Zambia. Please like and follow our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. So today we're talking about spiritual intelligence with Dr. Mukuka, who is the CEO of the Society for Spiritual Intelligence, Leadership and Democracy. Society for Spiritual Intelligence, Leadership and Democracy provides training and formation in communication, spiritual intelligence, servant leadership, and promotes democratic practice. So I'm just going to welcome Dr. Mukuka. Thank you, Dr. Tassicius Mukuka, for coming us into your home, which also serves as the office for the Society for Spiritual Intelligence, Leadership and Democracy. Thank you once more. So, in a few words, who is Dr. Tassicius?
Being a 65-year-old, it's almost very difficult to know where to start. I grew up on the Copper Belt. I was born in 1956, 18th of December. So for most of your viewers, I would have been born in Northern Rhodesia. And then a few years later, in 1964, I started school. At a very early age, particularly in secondary school, I sort of did not like the idea of a 9 to 5 job or 8 to 5 job. I wanted a job where I could make a difference. And my best subjects in school were mathematics and science. And if it was today, probably I would have been an astrophysicist. But fate or providence turned out that I went to a Catholic secondary school in Ndola, and I ended up training for the Catholic priesthood, and I became a priest. Yes, and I was a priest for 14 years. And then after 14 years, something unscripted happened. I had a son outside wedlock. And I began thinking, my church doesn't allow me to play a role in my son's life. So a few years after my son was born, before he became a teenager, I decided to leave the priesthood and to concentrate on being a part of his life. So, who is Tassicius Mukuka? I'm very passionate about the equality of the sexes, and that for me, men and women were created equal. So I don't understand societies which give the impression that men are more important than women. So I see myself essentially as an educator, but I'm also an innovator. I like to look at things from a totally different perspective. You know how most people, when they see something happening, they often ask the question, why is this happening? I like to think of myself as a person who looks at things that are not happening and asking myself, why are they not happening? For example, I can't understand why out of the 7 presidents we've had since 1964, we've not had a female president. I don't understand. So that's Tassicius in a very roundabout way.
Wow. Okay, so we heard that you're a firm believer of gender equality, right? Yeah. Okay, so how and when did the idea of spiritual intelligence come about?
Interesting. Up until a year ago, and I'm a researcher and I'm an academic, I had never really heard about the idea of spiritual intelligence because for you and me, there's only one intelligence, namely IQ, intelligence quotient. Other types of intelligence sounds like things people make up. last year, around about August, I was finishing my contract with the university I was working for, and for whatever reason, my contract was renewed. I knew it wasn't for lack of performance on my part. I would like to describe it as my tendency to shoot off with my mouth, especially telling truth to power. I think that didn't go down very well, especially that in most institutions I've worked, I was kind of a senior statesman, and my former university didn't take that to kindly. So when the contract was not renewed, I began thinking, should I really be working for someone, for the government, for anyone? Where is it that I can make the biggest impact or legacy? The thought occurred to me that it is in the area of research. And my immediate inclination was to do something that has to do with the equality of the genders. And that's how I began getting into spiritual intelligence purely by accident. So then I began reading, and I found this was what I have been waiting for. Yeah.
Okay, so in simple terms, just for the sake of the viewer who might be wondering what spiritual intelligence is, maybe you could just explain that a little bit. And can it be measured? Spiritual intelligence, is there a way of measuring it?
That is a very controversial issue, especially measuring part. The first part, I think, is easier to understand. We've not had spiritual intelligence in our vocabulary for a long time. It goes back to 1997 to a lady, an academic and a researcher by the name of Dana Zohar, an American, 1997. Before that, people began to question whether there was just one intelligence or there were many intelligences. But fortuitously, people like Dana Zohar discovered that actually by 1983, we had come to the conclusion in the academic field that there is more than one intelligence. Some people think, oh, there's just intelligence quotient. And a scholar, American scholar by the name of uh, Howard Gardner, wrote a book in 1983 entitled Multiple Intelligences. He discovered that people are intelligent at various types. And the more you can combine more than one intelligence, the more intelligent you are. But Howard Gardner was asked much later whether we could classify a thing called spiritual intelligence. He refused. He said the metrics and the measurements are not clear or objective. And he said, I would rather speak of existential intelligence, meaning an intelligence that helps you to understand about the bigger issues, such as why are we here? Where are we going? What's the purpose of the universe and us being here? These questions, according to recent scholars, deserve to be called spiritual intelligence. Can it be measured? At the moment, there are three main measurements, but you would have to say measurement in inverted commas. They are more like an inventory that you yourself go through. And if you are very honest, you can actually measure where your intelligence lies. And it gives you three options: low utilization of spiritual intelligence, average utilization of intelligence, and high utilization of intelligence. It is based on simple questions of the things that you think about, which are considered measurable. So they give you a scale, let's say, of 0 to 5. For example, one question might be, I often think about the afterlife. What happens after I die? That would be one measurement. So you yourself, if you are honest, you can plot yourself from 0 to 5 and ask yourself, how do I measure up between 0 and 5? Um, I personally thought I was a 4 out of 5. Yeah, partly because the nature of my work, teaching religious studies, these are questions that come up. But even as a person, I always think about this. So one test or one measurement has only 24 questions. And out of the 24 questions, you yourself can decide where you lie. And then out of that, there are suggestions on how you can improve in certain areas of your spiritual intelligence.
So in terms of utilization, how someone is able to utilize their spiritual intelligence, would be able to tell who's more intelligent than the other in that area.
You can. And the very fact that you ask this question tells me that your spiritual intelligence is actually a little higher than the ordinary person, believe it or not. Because I've been doing this now for a year and a half. You get a sense of the questions people ask, of their interests, and many other things. So it is possible to tell whether somebody has a high spiritual intelligence based on the number of issues they are occupied with. And let me make a clarification. This has nothing to do with faith in the Christian sense or any other sense. Even a person who does not believe in God can have spiritual intelligence, that they can connect to issues which are beyond the ordinary everyday issues or bread and butter issues, that they can think much more openly. And there are a lot of people who appear to be connected to the technical word is transcendent issues that go beyond the ordinary everyday issues. And strangely enough, this has nothing to do with your level of schooling. Yeah, my mother went up to grade 3 or grade 5 in the olden days, but I would describe her as a spiritually intelligent person because of her concerns for other people, concerns for humanity, concern for the future of the planet. When I arrived about a month ago or two, the first thing is my wife asked us to go for a walk. There's a river or a stream that borders the Natural Resources Development College. It's got to be one of the most polluted streams. And here we are, the Natural Resources Development, who are supposed to be keeping that for our future generations. My granddaughter is coming to visit for the first time. She's 1 year, 8 months. I would have loved to take her there for me to have a walk. But it is so polluted. So people who think about such things for me are spiritually intelligent. So I'm wondering whether some of our people who are in the business of safeguarding our environment and our shouldn't be thinking about that. But to be fair to them, they may be thinking that they are constrained by many other things. So there are many ways of telling whether somebody is spiritually intelligent or not. I have one basic measure, especially at the place of work. Um, when I arrived, and I deliberately don't want to mention my university by name, um, one thing that surprised me was how concerned, or almost predominantly, about when we are going to get paid. I thought they would be more concerned about, oh my God, I didn't have enough time to prepare the material. And when am I going to meet the students? And how best am I going to leave something behind? People would kind of, the first thing they would ask you, you arrive early in the morning. In my business, I'm thinking, because I have to run through a lecture each time before I begin. My friend is asking me, Doc, Zangena, as the money entered into the system. And I seemed to surprise them when I said, Zangena, where? How? Why? Because I knew if the money didn't come in today, it will come in definitely. Yeah. So at the moment, it's the business delivering the goods. So therefore, the sense of your job being part of who you are and part of what you can give to society rather than what you can get out of it, as John F. Kennedy would have said, that do not ask what America can do for you, but what you can do for America. And that, for me, distinguishes the academic who has spiritual intelligence and the one who doesn't.
Okay, so I've seen the words leadership and democracy coming out a lot in this particular session. So I just wanted to ask, is there a link? What's the link between spiritual intelligence and leadership and democracy?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Again, for me, the questions you are asked are not just professional. A spiritual intelligent person looks for connections. Yeah, you connect dots. The whole of life, the universe, you and I are connected to one single source. So, spiritual intelligence, leadership, and democracy. For me, first thing is when they began speaking about spiritual intelligence, they were not even speaking in a faith context. They were speaking in the context of business leaders. That the best business leader is the spiritually intelligent leader. Because what happens is that you can reduce most of our intelligences in three domains. You have the rational intelligence, you think things through, but you also have the emotional intelligence. And then third, the spiritual intelligence. The spiritual intelligence is the driver, the organizer of the other two domains. So if you are an auditor, if you are a media person such as you, spiritual intelligence makes you better at what you do. Yeah. And therefore, when it comes to leadership, spiritual intelligence produces the best leaders. Yeah. And you can tell among some of the presidents, whom I shall not mention, that the spiritual intelligence was extremely lacking because they tend to think, those who lack spiritual intelligence, more about how can we win the next votes. Yeah, that is a material thing. It's not a spiritual thing. I know of one president, again, who will remain unnamed. He invited a friend of mine, a consultant, to discuss how to bring Zambia forward. My friend had been advising the Rwandan government, and you know where Rwanda is, miles ahead of even Zambia. So as they were talking, this president lost interest and seems to have indicated to say, those things you are talking about won't work in Zambia because you are talking about the context of Rwanda coming out of a war. We never came out of a war. So therefore, there is no motivation for that kind of thing. And then he turned around to the vice president who was in the room and said, how did we do in the by-elections? Those are the real issues. What Francois Paya calls the politics of the belly. He was more worried about the politics of the belly. How did we do? So the vice president says, no, we did very well. We lost. And then says, why did we lose? Says, no, the opposition went in before us and gave out a lot of material, drinks, and money, and many other things. The president says, why didn't you tell me so that we could have offered more? Now, for me, that guy, the spiritual intelligence is just slightly above zero. I'm exaggerating a little bit.
Yeah. Dr. Mukuka, we're coming to the end of the program. Thank you so much for coming. But in your closing remarks, is there anything that you would like to say to the viewers?
The main thing I would like to say to the viewers is that human beings are made of many parts, but these parts are supposed to function together. There is the physical aspect, there is the mental aspect, but there is also the spiritual aspect. So if these don't work together, a human being is not fully functioning. And that is why the point I forgot to mention in your previous question, how democracy fits in. It then makes people to make the right choices based on not how much I'm going to receive, but on the best candidate that we are providing. And in my view, we should, at some point in the future, when I'm gone and left this planet, we should be asking our candidates for office how spiritually intelligent they are. How do they consider the people as number one and not their own self-aggrandizement or making themselves bigger? So to the viewers and to anyone who will access our interview, spiritual intelligence is for you. It's for everybody. It will make you a better parent, a better teacher, a better president, and a better everything or anything you can think of.
Dr. Mukuka, thank you so much for this interview, and we hope to learn more about spiritual intelligence. Well, viewers, there you have it. That was Dr. Superstitious Mukuka from the Spiritual Intelligence and Leadership and Democracy Movement. Remember to follow our page on Facebook, Melo Media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is also Melo Media. It's been your host, Valerie Banda. See you next time.